Let's now turn to the Vatican, where Pope Emeritus Benedict XVI was laid to rest in a historic ceremony earlier this morning. Pope Francis presided over the funeral, which took place in front of thousands of people in St. Peter's Square. Now, a living pope burying his predecessor is unprecedented in modern times. After the funeral, Benedict's coffin was taken back inside St. Peter's Basilica, where it's expected to be placed in a vast underground crypt known as the Vatican Grottos. NBC News foreign correspondent Claudio Lavanga is at the Vatican for us. We're also joined by George Weigel. He's a distinguished senior fellow, and William E. Simon Chair in Catholic Studies. Good morning to both of you. Thank you for joining us on this historic occasion. Claudio, I'll start with you on the ground there. Now, despite Benedict's request for a simple funeral, it turned out to be a pretty big event. Walk us through some of the key moments, like who was in attendance and just what it was like on the ground there.
Good morning, Savannah. Well, the Vatican said that it was going to be sober, simple, and solemn. And at the end of the day, even if it was big, of course, there was a big attendance. It really was that. There were about 50,000 people filling up St. Peter's Square this morning, all united in prayer and silence. And then before the Mass, before the funeral, the casket bearing the body of the Pope Emeritus Benedict XVI came out of St. Peter's Basilica, where it has been lying in state for about 3 days. And when it came out into the square, there was a long round of applause. There were some even chants of people saying Santo subito, which in Italian means make him a saint now. The Vatican just literally 10 minutes ago sent us pictures of the actual burial of the casket. So now the casket has been buried underneath the St. Peter's Basilica in the so-called Vatican crypt or grotto, Savannah.
George, let's bring you in here. So this, as we've said many times, we're using these words a lot here, but they're true, unique, historic funeral. It was the first for a Pope Emeritus. And for people at home who don't know, we kind of keep saying that like it's just part of his name or something, but it's sort of this special status of essentially retired Pope. How does Benedict's funeral compare with those before him?
I think this funeral, as Claudio just said, was characterized by a certain noble simplicity. By my recollection from our work together at NBC 17 years ago, this was about an hour shorter than the funeral mass of John Paul II. I think the atmosphere here was one of tremendous gratitude. This was an extraordinary life. Joseph Ratzinger exhibited one of the finest minds in 2,000 years of Catholic history. And I think the world got a sense of how much he was revered and appreciated by the people of the church, who, as Claudio said, turned out in great numbers today, and hundreds of thousands of them came through the Basilica since Monday to pay their respects to his mortal remains.
Absolutely. Claudio, talk to us a little bit about the burial itself. I know certain items were placed inside the coffin. Tell us about those and their significance.
Hey, Savannah, this is really a rare opportunity to see a centuries-old tradition being played out in front of our eyes. Well, we didn't actually see the objects being put inside the casket, but the Vatican said that there will be at least 3 objects. One is the pallium, which is the kind of stolen wool that is on that popes wear on their shoulders. The other one is a bag full of coins and medallions that have been minted during the pontificate of Pope Benedict XVI. For instance, with John Paul II, there were 26 coins put into his casket, one for each year. We don't know yet whether Pope Benedict XVI got 8 coins, because that's the number of years when he was Pope. And then the last thing, perhaps the most important, is the so-called rogito, which is a deed that describes the life and work of Pope Benedict XVI, a bit of a curriculum vitae in a way, and what he's done during his pontificate. I'll just read you a very short passage of that. He says his memory remains in the heart of the Church and of all humanity, and that he was gifted with vast and profound knowledge, biblical and theological. Savannah?
And George, actually, I know you've met and spent time with Benedict before. What were your impressions of him? What was he like as a person? And what would you say his loss means for the Catholic Church?
We knew each other for 35 years, Savannah. I last had an extended conversation with him a couple of years ago. And while he was very physically frail then, his mind was as clear as a bell. He had a terrific sense of humor, which I think most people would perhaps find somewhat surprising. He was so shy and and diffident in public. And he had a clarity of mind that was really singular in my experience. You would ask him a question, he would pause and reflect, and then he would answer in complete paragraphs. Not simply complete sentences, but complete paragraphs. As I said on the MSNBC broadcast of the funeral mass this morning, in terms of his significance and what his loss means, this is the end of an era. He was the last great figure of the Second Vatican Council, which began 60 years ago, to pass from the scene. So we are entering a genuinely post-conciliar moment in the history of the Church. And he will be very much missed for that, because he was one of the principal influences on the teaching of Vatican II and then on its interpretation.
Wow, very valuable and personal insight there, George and Claudio. Thank you for your report on the ground. Thank you both.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.